There are some moments that crack open your life so cleanly that you can hear the split. Mine came with a call from a neighbor named Russell, a man I barely knew beyond a few driveway nods and the occasional wave when our trash bins met at the curb. It was a Tuesday morning, around 8:17 a.m. I was sitting in a cramped hotel room 3 states away, sipping burnt coffee from a styrofoam cup and reviewing slides for a pitch that had been haunting my nerves for days. The room still smelled faintly of industrial-strength detergent and some synthetic air freshener trying too hard to be citrus. I was distracted but focused until my phone buzzed. "Hey, this is Russell. Russell from down the street. Sorry to bother you." I remember shifting in my chair, that kind of reflex you have when something feels just slightly off. "No worries," I said. "Everything okay?" He hesitated. Yeah. Just. Listen, didn't know if you'd want to know this. But there's been a guy, kinda tall, drives a red Mazda. He's been over at your place. Overnight." My hand froze around the paper cup. "Overnight?" I asked, too calm, too slow. "Yeah. Didn't think much of it at first. Could have been a friend of yours, right? But it's been more than once. Always when you're gone." He apologized again, said maybe he overstepped. But I thanked him, because he didn't. Not really. After we hung up, I just sat there, staring at the beige wall across from me like it might suddenly offer up answers. A red Mazda. A man. At my house. Overnight. I called my wife, Jessica, 2 hours later. I didn't mention Russell. I just asked about the kids. How was Avery's cough? Did Lucas still hate green beans? And was she doing okay handling everything while I was away? Her answers were routine, voice steady, cheerful even. "I miss you," she said at the end. "I miss you too," I lied. That night, after dinner with the client, I skipped drinks with the team and went straight back to the hotel. I watched the footage from the doorbell camera, which I'd mostly ignored since installing it. Nothing recent. That was strange. She always forgot to delete the old clips. Had she finally figured out how to clear the history? Or had someone helped her figure it out? The next morning, I booked an earlier flight back home, 3 days before my trip was supposed to end. I didn't tell Jessica. I claimed meetings had been canceled, blamed weather delays for the change in schedule. It was plausible enough. She didn't press. The house looked the same as I pulled into the driveway. Our dog, Rocco, barked from inside, his tail thumping against the glass. No red Mazda. No sign of an intruder. The curtains were drawn neatly, the recycling bin at the curb just like every other Wednesday. Inside, it smelled like lavender detergent and lemon-scented floor cleaner. The place was spotless, almost suspiciously so. Jessica was at work, the kids at school. Just me and the silence. I checked the security panel first. Disarmed at 8:02 a.m., rearmed at 8:27. So she'd left after taking the kids. Normal. Nothing odd. But then, in the kitchen trash, under coffee grounds and a crumpled Starbucks cup, I found something that didn't belong. A receipt. It was faintly smeared, but still legible. The Magnolia Inn. 1 night stay. 2 guests. Paid in cash. The date was 2 nights ago. I took a breath, held it, and let it out slowly. The Magnolia Inn was 20 minutes from our house. Why would my wife need a hotel room down the road while I was across the country? And why in cash? It was like trying to read a book written in smoke. The more I stared, the more the details dissolved. That afternoon, I started going through the house. Not frantic, methodical. That's how I work. I'm an architect, and my job is to catch things before they become flaws in the foundation. Cracks, misalignments, warps. I treat life the same way. In the bathroom cabinet, tucked behind the box of Band-Aids and under a rolled towel, I found a small prescription bottle. The label had been scratched, but the pharmacy sticker was still there. A name I didn't recognize. Not hers. A man's name. The bottle was half empty. I took a photo. Then I found something even stranger in the laundry room, in the hamper. A gray hoodie I didn't own. Too small for me, unfamiliar brand. I lifted it to my nose. It smelled faintly of cheap cologne and detergent. Not Jessica's usual scent. Not mine. The collar tag had faded, but a name was written in marker on the inside. Leo. That night, I told Jessica I was going to take the kids to my parents' cabin for the weekend. She seemed surprised, but not suspicious. Said it was a good idea. I kissed her on the cheek as she made tea, watching her pretend everything was fine. As soon as the kids were asleep, I went back downstairs, pulled out the doorbell camera's micro SD card, and loaded it onto my laptop. The feed was mostly uneventful. Amazon deliveries, kids playing hopscotch, Jessica coming and going. But one clip caught my breath. Sunday night, around 9:30 p.m. A red Mazda. It pulled into the driveway. The man stepped out, tall, lean, wearing a black hoodie. Not Leo's, a different one. He carried a duffel bag. Jessica opened the door, smiled, kissed him. Not a peck, not a greeting. A kiss that said too much. They disappeared into the house. I stared at the timestamp. I had called her 10 minutes later that same night. She'd answered. Calm, sweet, said she missed me. While he was still there, I paused the video, froze on the frame of her kissing him. The truth sat in my chest like a stone. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the ease with which she did it. The fluency of the lie. How many nights had been like that? How many calls had she answered while her lover was in our bedroom? I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the dark living room, staring at the paused image on my laptop, waiting for morning. The next day, I dropped the kids at school as usual, told them we'd do a movie night soon, just the three of us. Then I called Russell, asked if he remembered the guy's license plate. He said he didn't, but he'd try to get a picture next time. I didn't correct him. I thanked him, because there would be a next time. I would make sure of it. The next few days passed with a kind of unbearable normalcy. Mornings followed their routine. Jessica preparing toast and fruit for the kids, Avery refusing anything that wasn't a pancake, Lucas dragging his feet getting dressed. The rhythm of family life continued, a perfectly choreographed illusion that now felt like performance art, staged only for my benefit. But I watched closely. Jessica wore the same smile, used the same inflection when she kissed me goodbye, but I noticed her phone rarely left her side. Before, she'd leave it charging on the kitchen counter for hours. Now, it never strayed from her pocket. Her laughs were a second too loud. Her gaze lingered a second too long in empty thought. And most importantly, she had started locking our bedroom door when she showered. That Friday evening, I told her I was going back to the client site for the weekend. I spun a lie about needing to revise the project specs before Monday's presentation. She didn't question it, just nodded, hugged me, and said, "Be safe." I wasn't leaving town. I was checking into a motel 10 minutes away, the kind with peeling stucco and a buzzing soda machine that only took quarters. I paid in cash. No paper trail. My phone stayed off. I waited. At 9:17 p.m., the doorbell camera captured the red Mazda again. Same man. Same duffel bag. Same smile from my wife. This time, I didn't just watch from afar. I was parked 4 houses down, cloaked in shadow. The car's plates were in full view now. I took several photos. My pulse was steady, though my hands trembled. I was past the point of disbelief. I needed clarity. I stayed there for hours, staring at my own house. Its warmly lit windows a mockery of everything I once believed sacred. I imagined them inside, laughing, undressing, whispering. My brain played cruel movies with no director, just fragments and guesses stitched together by rage and grief. When the red Mazda finally left around 3:42 a.m., I followed it. He didn't drive far, just 12 minutes away to a block of townhouses I recognized near the train station. I watched him park. He didn't glance back once. I made a note of the address and drove back to the motel. The next morning, I ran a reverse lookup on the license plate. His name was Leonard Miller. Age 37. Lives alone. No criminal record. A marketing consultant. Jessica had always despised marketing types. Too slick, she used to say. Always selling you something you don't need. Apparently, that didn't apply to this one. I drove home around 10 a.m., letting myself in with my usual key. Jessica was on the couch in sweats, pretending to be groggy from waking up late. She kissed me on the cheek like I hadn't just witnessed the erasure of our marriage the night before. "Get everything done?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Just tired." She smiled. "Let's do something just us tonight. We need that, don't you think?" It felt surreal, standing there. Her voice was warm. Her suggestion felt sincere. But it was layered with deception so deep, it echoed. That evening, she poured wine. She cooked pasta. She kissed me with lips that had touched another man just hours ago. And when we made love, it felt hollow, like she was trying to erase something she didn't think I knew. But I knew. And I had a plan. I sent the photos and Leonard's name to an old friend from college, Drew, who worked in cybersecurity. "Find everything," I said. "Socials, phone, emails. I'll pay." By Monday, Drew had sent me a file. Leonard was single, divorced. No kids. Active on Twitter, private on Facebook. LinkedIn showed him consulting for companies Jessica had worked with 2 years ago. I messaged Drew again. Can you get into his phone? Drew, that's not legal. Me, I'm not asking for court evidence. Just peace of mind. Drew paused. Then, give me a day. That evening, something changed. Jessica seemed on edge, as if the walls of her carefully curated world were closing in. She asked more questions than usual about my meetings, my stress levels, whether we should take a family vacation in the fall. It felt like a guilt-fueled performance, and I watched it all in silence. When the kids went to bed, I opened my laptop. Drew had sent an encrypted folder. Inside were message logs, voice memos, photos, thousands of them. I filtered by Jessica's number. There were over 200 messages exchanged between her and Leonard. Many were mundane, flirty, filled with nicknames like L and J. But some cut me in half. He's so routine. I know exactly what he'll do before he does it. You make me feel alive again. Do you think he suspects? Not a clue. He's always working. He'll never know. They met at a networking event. Leonard had been charming. She had felt invisible at home. That's what she wrote. Invisible. I sat there in my home office, reading each message like it was a nail through my hand. Photos followed. Him in our bedroom. Them on our couch. A selfie of the two of them in my backyard, smiling like teenagers. But then came the worst one. A video, dated a week before my business trip. Jessica, holding the camera, walking through our house. Her voice was playful. This is where the magic happens, she said, giggling. He has no idea. I almost feel bad. She turned the phone toward Leonard, who was shirtless in our bed. He smirked. I'm living in another man's house, he said. Feels kind of primal. I didn't sleep that night. I sat at the edge of our bed, watching Jessica breathe softly beside me, dreaming in the oblivion only liars know. The next morning, I told her I had to fly out again. An urgent side issue. She didn't protest. I packed a suitcase I didn't need and drove to my brother's apartment across town. I needed to plan carefully, methodically, because the man who kissed my wife in my doorway had just stepped into something much bigger than an affair. He stepped into my world. And in my world, I control the blueprint. There's a difference between fury and clarity, and I think that's what scared me the most. I wasn't raging. I wasn't pacing or yelling or hurling glasses at the wall. I was quiet, focused. Every moment that passed made my intent sharper. That week, I turned my pain into architecture. I designed my revenge like I would a structure, measured, deliberate, with the end always in mind. From the outside, I was still the husband Jessica thought she could manipulate. Still the father who kissed his children's foreheads at bedtime. Still the man who drank his coffee on the porch and waved to neighbors. But inside, something colder had taken root. I knew I couldn't just confront her. That would be too easy, too temporary. No, I wanted this to last. I wanted her to feel the ground vanish beneath her feet. And to do that, I needed her to keep thinking I was oblivious. Step one was the house. Our home. My fortress, now desecrated. I installed 2 new hidden cameras. Not the kind you buy from a big box store with plastic housings and blinking lights. These were pinhole-sized lenses tucked into corners she'd never inspect. One behind a fake outlet in the hallway, and another embedded in the frame of the living room mirror. I even rewired the existing motion sensor in the basement to record audio whenever triggered. She wouldn't notice. She never went down there. Each camera streamed directly to a secure server. Not to my phone, too risky. I used a remote terminal from a secure laptop I kept locked in my trunk. I checked the feeds twice a day, once in the morning, once after she fell asleep. Every piece of footage was logged, time-stamped, cataloged. I was building a case. Not for divorce court, no, for something more poetic. Next, I started working Leonard. I wanted to know how much he knew. If he was just another sleaze chasing a married woman, that was one thing. But if he knew everything, about me, our kids, our life, and still smiled for selfies in my backyard, that made him dangerous. I opened a new email account under a fake name and sent him a message. Subject, you don't know me. You've made a mistake. That house you're visiting? It belongs to someone who's watching you now. Be careful where you park next time. The neighbors notice. A friend. I created a throwaway number using a spoofing app and sent him a text from the same alias. She's not worth what's coming. Then I waited. Leonard never responded. But the next time he came over, yes, he still came. The red Mazda didn't park in the driveway. He left it at the end of the street and walked in through the back fence gate. Clever, maybe, but it told me he got the message. He was worried. Good. That Friday, I called Jessica's office and asked to speak with her. Her receptionist said she had already left for the day at 3:22 p.m. That was early, even for a Friday. I checked the camera feed when I got back to my car. Sure enough, Leonard had arrived just past 3:40. A different outfit this time, white button-down, leather messenger bag. He kissed her at the door again. She laughed, then pulled him inside. That laugh echoed in my ears all the way to the motel. I watched the entire visit from my laptop. They didn't even bother drawing the curtains. My blood went cold watching them move around the house like it was theirs. She poured him a drink in the kitchen. He took a shower. She brought him a towel. I paused the video there. I couldn't watch the rest. Instead, I opened a blank document and wrote, evidence timeline, date, time, car plate, entry, exit, kiss, bedroom. It was meticulous. A blueprint for truth. Saturday morning, I took the kids out early for pancakes. Jessica was unusually chipper when we left, humming as she loaded their coats into the car. I glanced at her face as she kissed Avery's forehead. That's when I noticed something new. She wasn't just hiding something anymore. She looked relieved, like a weight had been lifted, like she was already living in a future that didn't involve me. After breakfast, we stopped by a park. I let the kids play while I sat on a bench under the gray sky and tried to remember when I'd stopped being someone she loved. It wasn't a dramatic moment, I realized. It was erosion, a slow wearing down of something we never thought to protect. But now, I had a foundation, and it was almost time to build something new. Sunday afternoon, I checked the camera feeds again. Nothing. No Leonard. No guests. But that night, while Jessica was in the shower, I checked her purse. Hidden inside a zippered pocket was a new key fob. I recognized it instantly. It wasn't from her office. It was for a self-storage facility. I snapped a photo of the logo. Monday morning, while she was at work, I paid them a visit. I told the clerk I was considering a unit and wanted to see the layout. Friendly guy, young, eager to help. He handed me a map of the place and pointed out the units available on the north side. He left me to wander. I strolled casually past rows of lockers until I found hers, Unit C17. I recognized her padlock from the brand engraving. Same one she kept in our garage toolbox. I placed a wireless camera facing the door and disguised it in a magnetic car air freshener case. Just in case. Then I left. That evening, I searched our accounts. Sure enough, a payment to Storage Solutions appeared on her statement. Autodraft. Mid-tier unit. Registered under her maiden name. She'd taken precautions. But not enough. That night, as we lay in bed, she curled into me. Her breath warm against my neck. "You've been quiet lately," she whispered. "Just tired," I replied. She kissed my chest. "I love you, you know." "Yeah," I said, but I didn't say it back. She didn't notice. 3 days passed before she visited the unit. I watched the footage from the hidden camera that evening. Jessica pulled up alone, unlocked the padlock, entered the unit, stayed inside for about 10 minutes, then locked it again and drove away. I waited until Thursday to return. I had borrowed a bolt cutter from work, kept gloves on, broke the lock clean, and replaced it with an identical one I bought at a hardware store across town. Nobody would know the difference. Inside the unit, I found what I hadn't dared hope for. A suitcase, a men's leather jacket, cologne, a toothbrush, photos, printed selfies of her and Leonard, a burner phone. I took it all, every single item, then locked the unit back up and left. Back at the motel, I opened the phone. There was no password. She hadn't even tried to hide it well. The messages were newer, shorter, mostly scheduling. "Can't wait to have the house again. He's leaving town next week. We'll bring wine. Miss your arms." I looked at the calendar. They were planning something. The following weekend. A full day. She thought I'd be on another business trip. I wasn't. Not this time. I woke up Saturday morning before the sun rose. The motel was quiet, its silence broken only by the occasional car passing on the distant freeway. I lay there in the stillness, my hands folded over my chest, rehearsing everything one last time. This was it. For weeks, I had collected evidence, stitched together timelines, and tracked every lie Jessica wove into our life. But this day wasn't about confrontation. It was about exposure. I didn't want her to admit what she had done. I wanted her to see it unravel in front of her, thread by thread, until nothing remained. By 7:30 a.m., I was already back at the house. The kids were with my sister for the weekend. I told Jessica I had to fly out for a client emergency, something about zoning conflicts and design revisions, and wouldn't be back until late Sunday. She had smiled and nodded, giving me a kiss that didn't linger. I left the driveway, circled the block, and parked 2 streets over. Then I walked back through the side alley, climbed over the fence, and let myself in through the basement. From there, I ascended into the silent heart of our home. She would never think to check the crawl space behind the den wall. That's where I kept my equipment. The laptop streaming the cameras, the speaker system I had wired through the living room vent, and the voice-activated relay I had hidden in the bedroom. It was time for her performance. At 9:12 a.m., the red Mazda returned. I watched from the crawl space monitor as Leonard stepped out, dressed like a man on vacation. Khakis, short sleeves, sunglasses. He carried the same duffel bag. When Jessica opened the door, they embraced like lovers reuniting after war. She laughed as he kissed her neck. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted copper. He followed her in, slipping off his shoes and tossing them casually near the door. Like he belonged here. Like this was his house. They moved to the living room, drinks in hand by 9:40 a.m., talking softly. I couldn't hear every word, but her body language was easy to read. Loose, affectionate, practiced. She leaned on in the way she used to lean on me. They didn't notice the new vase on the mantel. Inside it, nestled between 2 artificial stems, was a hidden microphone. Leonard chuckled. "So we have all day?" "All day," she said, running her fingers through his hair. "He's not coming back until tomorrow night." They disappeared into the bedroom. I waited, watched, listened. I should have been angry, furious. But what I felt was colder than that, detached. Like I was studying blueprints for a crumbling building, noting the fractures, marking each weak point for demolition. At 11:07 a.m., they emerged. Jessica had changed into something casual, sweats, bare feet. Leonard was shirtless, drinking water from the glass I used every night. "You ever think about telling him?" Leonard asked. She snorted. "What would be the point? I mean, if you're not happy." She shrugged. "He's convenient. Keeps the lights on. The rest? I don't think he notices anymore." I closed my eyes. Every word seared itself into my memory. They spent the afternoon lounging. Netflix. Wine. Her head on his chest. My home transformed into their sanctuary. But I wasn't done yet. At 5:15 p.m., I initiated phase 2. I opened my phone and sent a message from a private number I'd been using, one Jessica didn't know. Having fun. I waited. 2 minutes passed. Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, and her face froze. Leonard leaned in. "What is it?" She stood abruptly. "Nothing. Just spam." She walked into the hallway. I watched her on the second monitor as she opened her phone and checked the message again. I sent another. "Enjoying the wine? The red's your favorite, right?" Her head whipped toward the kitchen. Panic flickered across her face. She returned to Leonard, trying to play it cool. "I think I left a window open in the basement." "I'll check," he offered. "No," she said too quickly. "It's fine. I'll get it." She descended the basement stairs. I watched from the crawl space entrance, holding my breath as her footsteps creaked closer. She reached the bottom step, looked around. Nothing. She took a cautious step forward. That's when I played the audio. From the basement speaker, I played her own voice, pulled from a bedroom clip 2 weeks prior. "He doesn't even touch me the same anymore. It's like he's going through the motions." Jessica froze. The voice continued, soft and haunting. "With you, it's like waking up again. Like I'm finally real." She spun around, eyes wide, heart pounding in her chest. "Who's there?" she whispered. I stepped back into the shadows and let the silence do its work. She bolted upstairs. From the control feed, I watched her clutch Leonard's arm. "Someone's in the house," she said, breathless. Leonard stood. "What? Are you sure?" She nodded. "I heard something. My voice. Like a recording." He moved toward the basement. She stopped him again. "I think it's him," she whispered. "What?" "I think it's him. I think he knows." Leonard blanched. "You said he was out of town." "He was supposed to be." They stood there, frozen in place. Then came the final act. I pressed play on the living room speaker system, the one I'd wired into the ceiling vent. My voice echoed through the house. "Tell me, Jessica, did you really think I wouldn't find out?" She gasped. Leonard backed away from the wall, eyes darting. I continued. I gave you everything. This house. Our family. My trust. Jessica clutched her chest, her face drained of all color. Leonard whispered, "Where is he?" She shook her head. "I don't know. I don't know." I watched as she ran to the front door, fumbled with the lock, and yanked it open. Outside, the world looked normal. But inside, her world was crumbling. Leonard grabbed his bag. "I'm not sticking around for this," he said. She followed him out, still in sweats, barefoot on the lawn. The door slammed behind them. They didn't notice the neighbors watching from their porches. Didn't notice the cameras I had wired to stream the footage live. Didn't notice the man across the street raising his phone. Recording. Capturing everything. I stepped out of the crawl space, climbed the basement stairs, and stood in my home once more. It was quiet again. I moved through each room, touching the walls like they were old friends I hadn't seen in years. I was reclaiming something. The final phase was set for Sunday night. But then, as I returned to the living room, something caught my eye. A notification blinked on the laptop. A motion alert from the backyard camera. I clicked the feed. There was Leonard, alone, climbing over the back fence. And in his hand was a crowbar. The crowbar caught the light as Leonard crept across the backyard. His face was tight, focused, not the smug expression I'd seen in so many stolen recordings. No, this was different. This was fear masked as aggression. I watched him on the backyard camera, his grip tightening with every step, and in that moment, I understood something I hadn't until now. He wasn't just trying to scare me. He was preparing to eliminate a threat. Me. The house was silent. Jessica was still gone. Probably trying to call him, warn him, convince him to run. Too late. I closed the laptop, tucked it under my arm, and moved to the kitchen. I didn't panic. I didn't call the police. This was still my house. My domain. Every step he took on the flagstone path outside, I had laid it. Every bolt in this foundation, I had drilled. Let him come. A creak from the patio door. He tried the handle. Locked. Then came the sound of metal scraping against glass. The crowbar wedging into the doorframe. My heart beat steadily, not from fear, but focus. I opened the pantry door and stepped inside, just out of sight. The glass shattered. One pane, then two. The door swung inward. Leonard stepped in slowly, crowbar raised like a club. "Hello," he called, voice low, eyes scanning. "You in here?" His shoes crunched over shards of glass. "I know you're here," he growled. "Let's not make this worse." I remained silent, still. He passed the kitchen table, headed toward the hallway. That's when I moved. Not toward him, but toward the breaker box in the garage. I flipped the main switch. Darkness swallowed the house whole. A second later, I triggered the pre-recorded voice loop through the backup speaker system, the one on the upper floor. "You shouldn't have come here." Leonard froze. "Who's there?" he shouted, turning wildly. I let another voice play from behind him. Jessica's voice, one I'd captured weeks ago. "He doesn't know. He's stupid. He never sees it." Leonard spun around. "Jessica." Silence. "You said he'd never find out." His breath came fast now, uneven. The crowbar trembled in his grip. I waited. Then I stepped from the shadows. Not with a weapon, just with my presence. His eyes met mine across the hallway, faint outlines in the dark. "You," he said, almost a whisper. "You broke into my house." I replied quietly. "You left me no choice." I tilted my head. No choice but to cheat? To invade? To threaten me in my own home? "She lied to both of us," he snapped. "You think you're the only one." "She didn't lie to me," I said. "Not anymore." I clicked a button in my pocket, and every speaker in the house came alive with overlapping audio. Jessica laughing with him, calling him my real husband. Leonard mocking me, saying I was a ghost in my own home. He lunged toward me, but I had anticipated it. I stepped back into the garage and slammed the door shut behind me, locking it from the outside. Heavy-duty deadbolt. Leonard hit the door hard from the other side, shouting obscenities. The crowbar clanged against the metal. "You'll go to jail for this," he screamed. "No," I said calmly. "But you will." From my pocket, I pulled out the remote app on my phone, linked to the cloud server. I sent everything. The camera footage, the audio files, the GPS logs, and a photo of him breaking in with the crowbar. To my attorney. To the police non-emergency line. To Jessica. And, just for good measure, to Leonard's employer. By the time I opened the garage door again 15 minutes later, Two squad cars were pulling into the driveway. Lights, but no sirens. Leonard was still in the kitchen when they entered, still holding the crowbar. He didn't fight. Jessica returned 30 minutes after he was cuffed and taken. She stepped inside slowly, eyes red, breath catching in her throat. "You set this all up," she said quietly. "I did." "For how long?" "Since Russell called me." She nodded slowly, hands trembling. "So what now?" I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I simply handed her an envelope from the table, one I prepared days ago. Inside was everything. Copies of the footage, the messages, a notarized confession I'd written for her to sign, and divorce papers. All she had to do was agree to the terms. I watched her read the top page. Her eyes filled with tears. "You're going to ruin me," she whispered. "No," I replied. "You did that yourself. I'm just giving you the mirror." She sank into the chair and said nothing. I walked past her, out to the porch, breathing in the cool evening air. The sound of distant sirens, faint and fading, echoed over the rooftops. Behind me, the house was still, silent. But for the first time in a long while, it was mine again. The divorce moved swiftly after that. Jessica didn't contest the terms. Not after seeing what I had. Not after the district attorney dropped an attempted breaking and entering charge on Leonard. He took a plea deal. No jail time, but a criminal record. Fired. Evicted from his consultancy circle. The storage unit was cleared. The house title transferred to me fully. She didn't want it. "Too many ghosts," she said. "The kids, well, they're young. They didn't know the full story, and they won't until they're old enough to understand it. For now, they know only that mom and dad live in different places, but still love them both." I rebuilt from the ruins. Sold the old house and designed a new one. Not because I wanted to erase the past, but because I wanted something that didn't carry the echoes of betrayal in its walls. Jessica visits for the kids, cordial and quiet. The sparkle in her voice is gone, the confidence hollow. I don't gloat. I don't sneer. I just live. And sometimes, late at night, when the house is still and the kids are asleep, I walk through the hallway and touch the walls again. Not to remember what happened, but to remind myself. I was the one who saw the cracks, and I didn't let it fall. I rebuilt. Stronger. Smarter. Untouchable.